join in welcoming the panelists to our discussion today. Since each gentleman's list of accomplishments is both diverse and comprehensive, I invite you to read in your programs for more detailed biographies of each man. However, we will say a little bit about each. First up, we have, reading left to right, is Dr. Julian Earls. Dr. Earls is currently executive in residence at the Cleveland State University, Hoosier College of Business Administration. He's retired from NASA, where he was director, NASA Glenn Research Center, where he engaged in research, technology, and systems development programs. He holds 10 university degrees, has been awarded 6 honorary doctoral degrees. Julian Earls is the author of 31 publications, has been given many awards for achievement in service, notably from President Clinton, President George W. Bush. Dr. Earls is an inaugural inductee of the National Black College Alumni Hall of Fame. He was inducted with the late Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and Justice Thurgood Marshall. As a mentor, he's guided many students through college and the professions. He co-founded as an organization that awards scholarships to black students who attend historically black colleges and universities. He is recognized internationally as an orator and is a Jennings Foundation Distinguished Scholar Lecturer. Ladies and gentlemen, Julian Earls. Randell McShepard was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio, graduated from John F. Kennedy High School, attended Baldwin Wallace College, where he received a BA degree in psychology and communications. Randell also attended Cleveland State University, received a Master of Science degree in urban studies. Randy is currently employed as Vice President of Public Affairs for RPM International, a $4 billion chemical coatings and paint company headquartered in Medina. Prior to joining RPM, Randell worked for 15 years in nonprofit management positions focused on workforce development, economic development, government affairs, and community service. An active community and corporate leader, Randell McShepard is currently serving on several boards here in Northeast Ohio. He's also co-founder and chairman of Policy Bridge, a public policy think tank serving Northeast Ohio region. Through his work at Policy Bridge, he co-founded the Rid All Green Partnership, a commercial urban agriculture initiative based in Cleveland. Ladies and gentlemen, Randell McShepard. Seated next to him is Philip Morris, columnist for The Plain Dealer and Ohio native who grew up in Columbus. Philip attended Ohio Wesleyan University, where he received a BA in journalism. After graduating, he worked for the Dayton Daily News as a police and courts reporter. Philip Morris joined the Plain Dealer's editorial page in 1990, where he was responsible for coverage of Cleveland city government, Ohio state government, and the state and federal penal systems, education and children's issues also. He became a Metro columnist for the Plain Dealer in 2007. His column quickly became recognized for its relentless focus on the challenges facing the region and its hard-pressed residents. In addition to being a Pulitzer Prize finalist for commentary in 2010 and 2011, he's received numerous accolades over the years, including induction into the Cleveland Press Club Hall of Fame, first place award from the National Association of Black Journalists in 2010 and 2013, first place award from the National Headliners in 2008, many more. Ladies and gentlemen, Philip Morris. Steve Sanders was born and raised in Cleveland, Bowling Green State University, played football for the future Hall of Fame coach Urban Meyer, and he finished with impressive career stats while at Bowling Green. More importantly, he graduated college with a degree in political science. Steve honored to play in the NFL for his hometown team, the Cleveland Browns, during the 2006 to 2008 seasons. As part of his life commitment to directly impacting young people who have come from similar environments, socioeconomics, and urban generation, as he has, in 2011, Steve Sanders opened the Steve Sanders Academy, an Ohio community school in his old community. In addition to his NFL career and philanthropy, Steve recently launched Training Camp for Life, a nonprofit organization created to inspire, develop, and empower young male athletes in all aspects of sports and life. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Sanders. Ricky Smith is next. He's a Cleveland native, a graduate of university schools and Morehouse College. Over the past years, Ricky has grown his comedic career, writing for Cartoon Network's Black Dynamite show, contributing on Funny or Die, and acting in almost 30. Currently splitting his time between Cleveland and Los Angeles, he was named one of Cleveland Magazine's most interesting people in 2014, credited with being a social media celebrity with more than 30,000 followers on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram combined. Ricky always knew what he wanted to help what he wanted to do, and that was to help others. So with the success of his comedy and his passion for charity, he took to his followers for support, and in a short time, random acts of kindness everywhere. Hashtag Rake was then born. Less an organization and more a movement, Rake encourages people to simply go out of the way to do something nice for someone else. Ladies and gentlemen, we welcome him as well. Ricky Smith. Also on the panel is Nathan Tolliver of Cleveland University's Circle neighborhood, student at Cleveland State University. He's learned the history and value of the culturally and artistically rich community at an early age from his grandparents. Trailblazing civil rights attorney and Cleveland Municipal Court District President Stanley Tolliver was his granddad. Activist, educator Dorothy Tolliver, also grandmother. Nathan is a lifetime member of the NAAC's Cleveland chapter and has been socio-politically involved since high school, canvassing and contributing to a number of political campaigns. Currently, Nathan Tolliver is a mentor to male youth and sits on Cleveland's Special Events Corporation board, which is responsible for hosting the 2014 Gay Games. Ladies and gentlemen, Nathan Tolliver. My name's Leon Bibb. You know what I do. I work in television at Channel 5. Been here forever. We've been talking in the back there about a whole lot of things. You should have been back there because we said a lot of things back there. But we're going to continue our discussion. And I said I was going to throw the first question out to Julian Earls because I did an eeny, meeny, miny, mo kind of a thing, and my finger stopped on Julian Earls' picture. So he's going to get the first question, but we're all participating. A young black man earlier on the video complained to an older black man who was a civil rights activist, "You did not leave us a blueprint." What do you think he meant by that? He didn't get a blueprint.
I may be out of step because I kind of find the question insulting in the sense that it implies that you failed to do something which leaves me in the situation in which I find myself. It's sort of a blame, if you will, that if you had done something, then I wouldn't have to do something. Thank God Harriet Tubman didn't ask for a blueprint. Ida B. Wells didn't ask for a blueprint. Thank God George Forbes, Lou Stokes, Arnold Pinckney, Reverend Moss, Bob Madison didn't ask for a blueprint. So that's why I sort of am out of step in terms of hurts me to see leaders apologizing and saying they dropped the ball. So I'm out of step in that regard. And when you talk blueprint, an architect here, Bob Madison, will tell you that if you want a blueprint can be for a house, a blueprint can be for an airplane, it can be for a space station. You have to tell me what your goal is for which you want a blueprint. Mm-hmm. So I would ask the young man, what is it you want to accomplish in terms of that? But short answer, I think it was a plea for help, for someone to give him some guidance in terms of what to do.
I'm going to go to the end out here. Go right ahead. Feel free to. Nathan, you're the youngest of us up here, I believe. I think I went through everybody's age, and I know you're the youngest of us up here. Are you looking for a blueprint?
I wouldn't say I'm looking for a blueprint. I feel like there really is no blueprint. You just have to try and emulate positivity, the characteristic that you see in people that you look up to. Now, the problem with that is a lot of young black men do not have exposure to the gentlemen, these esteemed gentlemen that are on this panel. A lot of them, are constantly fighting, the images and stereotypes that are thrown at them on a daily basis. So when it comes to a blueprint, I really don't think there is one. I really don't think there is one.
Anybody else want to jump on that? Because we're going to cover a whole lot of ground here.
To piggyback on that, I guess, and what you were saying earlier is, what's the goal? What's the point of the blueprint? Is it to, wealth? Is it to, portray positive black images? It's like, what is the end-all game of what we're trying to achieve here? And I think that's the bigger thing that, maybe 40, 50 years ago, there was a common goal, kind of rise up or civil rights movement. Now we're kind of every man for himself. It might be to obtain materialistic things. It might be positive images. It might be this or that. So I think as a group, we're divided. And so no blueprint can there might be a blueprint to get wealth. There might be a blueprint to get positive images, but there's not one blueprint. And I think that's kind of a bigger issue, is we don't have a unity in essence.
Yeah. Many of us on this stage and in this audience are children of the civil rights movement. I count myself as one of the children of the civil rights movement. I was backstage with one of our 11-year-old youngsters, one of the 11-year-old kids backstage about an hour ago, and I asked him about the civil rights movement. I says, civil rights movement, long time ago or short time ago? He says, oh, a long time ago, long time ago. Does that have anything to do with where we are today, gentlemen? Philip Morris or Steve? Does that have anything to do with where we are?
If I could jump in there. The blueprint question, it continues to fascinate me because I find myself all over the place with it. I agree with this one speaker in the video that said the blueprint was left, we just didn't show you where the blueprint was. Well, I sort of agree with that, but on the flip side, I think the blueprint represents everyone that's on the stage and in this room, and it's our job to actually put the blueprint in people's faces, the generation that's coming after us. I mean, it was Frederick Douglass that said it's easier to build strong boys than to fix broken men. Well, we know that we're raising a generation of young boys that are broken, and those of us who aren't broken, men that are strong, the fact that we're not going out there and putting it in their faces. Just to make this real brief, I wrote a piece about 2 months ago about a young boy who decided to take on some services at the Urban League. They were doing some job training services. This was a young man who had been emancipated out of foster care. And he quickly found himself living in a homeless shelter. He found himself getting caught up into petty theft, just being on the margins of the law. So he went to the Urban League, and the Urban League cleaned him up in their 3-week program. They gave him a jacket and a tie. The third day that he was wearing this jacket and a tie, he was robbed at gunpoint because the folks that saw him in this jacket and tie thought that this kid was the blueprint. He was something that they considered a mark, someone that they could come after, and little did they know that he was, excuse my French, that he was the same thug that they were, but he was trying to clean up his life. So in terms of advancing the blueprint, I think it falls to us. Yes, it is an insult that, Dr. Earls, that these young people imply that somehow we've dropped the ball. But in the continuation of the legacy of what it means to be a Black American, I think it is incumbent upon us not just to be the blueprint, but to force the blueprint upon the coming generations.
How do we do that, Rondell?
How do we force?
How do we turn it around? What do we do? We know what the problem is. You and I talk about it. Everybody here talks about it at every party we go to, every social event. How do we fix it?
Well, I think in my experience, far too many people, I would say in my generation, have been so consumed with looking for a blueprint that they didn't realize that even if there was a blueprint left, the world has changed so much it wouldn't apply anyway. I mean, what I see in corporate America and what I see happening on a daily basis is an ever-ending, ever-changing, struggle. Although there are people that are, in the corporate community that I think have helped me in some way, I wouldn't dare say that there's a blueprint that I could have taken from them and it would have, helped me for the rest of my career. I still would have needed to go back, tweak it, adjust it to remain in touch with the current day challenges. I do believe it's a cry out to Dr. Earl's point. Not so much people are looking for the blueprint, but they're looking for mentorship. They feel that men, African-American men in power, oftentimes do not take the time to look back, to give back, to offer advice, to offer counsel. So it's easy to put it in the frame of, oh, if I only had the blueprint, I could live happily ever after. It's a little deeper than that.
Steve Sanders, you played for the Cleveland Browns for a few years, played college football, graduated from Bowling Green State University. On this day of we're watching the Super Bowl, it doesn't start till 6:25. I'll keep up with your time.
It'll be on the screen in a minute.
I'll keep up with your time. You left professional football to do exactly what Rondell is talking about. You walked out and you were not injured out. You walked out.
Yeah, I willingly decided to step away from the game. And it wasn't as easy as I'm sitting here to make it seem as though it is. But at the end of the day, I wanted to make sure that the next 10 years of my life were better than the last 10. So I saw myself at a point where 30 years old now, I'm in that middle stage. I'm at that point where I'm looking at the guys who are older than me, and they're looking at me like I'm just a baby. And the younger guys that I'm talking to and speaking to, they're looking at me as though I'm just a tad bit older or old enough to be able to tell them what the blueprint is. And I agree with the other gentleman here. There really isn't a blueprint, because I found out that my greatest successes have come from my greatest failures. And throughout my process is where I've learned the most. You know, I was striving to try to get to a place and a point of success, but then I looked up and said, wow, all of what I've learned throughout this process of trying to reach a place has been really what's been the greatest thing in my life.
Quickly, what do you mean by your greatest success came from your greatest failure?
You know, I shared my story openly with you guys behind stage. It was at the point where I had nowhere to look. I had hit rock bottom. I had gone to a place where, you know, I needed to turn to, of course, my faith in God, but also all of the people that were around me. Those are the people that ultimately were there for me. It wasn't all the lights, the fame, the cameras, and all of that. It was the people that were there from day one and have stuck by me.
Can I comment for a minute?
Go ahead, Julia.
What I want to do is, first of all, I was on a program with Alex Haley before he died, and Alex said his dad used to say to him, boy, if you see a turtle sitting atop a fence post, you know it has some help.
Yeah.
Okay. So my point is that we ought to leave this place with a plan for us to do something. And the example is what Sigma Pi Phi fraternity has done in terms of adopting Kenneth Clement School. Every week, a black male from this organization is in that school several times a week, adopting the school, and Randall's leadership is largely responsible for our doing that. We have to make our presence felt. We can't go into some school for Black History Month and disappear and not come back for next year.
Can I say, just to give you a feel for how important what he just said is, talk about a blueprint. I was in front of a third grade class last year, and 3 boys were kind of looking at me whispering, and I kind of walked over to them and said, hey, what's going on? And they said, Mr. McShepherd, is that a wedding ring on your finger? And my knee-jerk reaction was, well, of course it's a wedding ring. And then I thought I had to put on my Policy Bridge research hat. Wait a minute. These statistics say that these boys rarely see a married African-American man in their communities. Right. And so it was a teachable moment. So I was giving them the blueprint, right? There you go. I went to a first grade classroom a week ago, and the teacher said, someone very special is here. You know, do you know who he is? And they looked at me, and a few of them said, Barack Obama?
I want to add something. One day, my wife and I were at the church we attend, and there were some kids, some young black kids who came in for some sort of a program on one Sunday, and they came with a group, and they were not with their parents or whomever, and they came with a group, and we were asked to take a couple and sit them in, so the kids were dispersed in the congregation. So my wife Marguerite and I, we took a boy and a girl. I think they were brother and sister, and we sat them in between us, and we kind of helped them through the church service. And when we sang, we showed our fingers on where they should turn the page on the hymnal and all the things that we did like that. Afterward, the kids got together, and then we heard them talk. And the kids that were seated between my wife and I, me and my wife.
You got it right.
Yeah, I got it. I do this for a living. They went and they talked to the other kids and says, and guess what? They're married too. And that was like, and that was an eye opener, because it said something perhaps that I don't have to take it any farther than that. Yep. Ricky?
Yeah, we talked about this backwards, but even I think TV, and I'm 100% in it, you know, right? I want to be more, but anyway. Like, but 20, 30 years ago, like Jefferson's, as crazy as George Jefferson was, he was married to Weezy, he owned the Cleaners. Right. You know, you even at Good Times, as depressing as the show was, James Evans worked every day, he tried to support his family. The Cosby Show, different world. We talked about it back. I had a friend from Hawaii that literally went to college because he wanted to be in the dorms, like different world. But those were images, even 227. You know, originally 227, actually, Hulk Hogan was supposed to play the father figure. They were supposed to be a single family. And Marla Gibbs was like, no, I want Lester, you know, to play the father. So even then, it's so many images, positive images of television, might seem minor, But if that's the only image you see, we're now, and I don't know what happened, we have Love and Hip Hop, we have Basketball Wives, we have, right now it's literally only 2 network TV shows on right now. And if that's, the situation you said where a kid wouldn't see a married person, you're not even seeing the images on TV anymore.
Who controls that? Who controls what goes out on national television?
I'm not allowed to say technically, because I want a job still.
He wants to stay in television.
No. I think a lot of it is us. I don't want to, a lot of it's us because if, you have the Oprahs, you have the Tyler Perrys, and if they, push that, if they say, hey, TBS, we also want to do a show, surrounding this or that, it's kind of like they're not socially obligated to do it. But if you can put the foot in the door, for every Shawnee, Shaq's wife is doing, she has 9 different Basketball Wives shows. If she was to say, well, let's do one, Rev Run has a show. He's married to his wife, good family structure. That's about it. And it's sad, but, and I tell people that it's like 20 years ago, they were giving away TV shows, the positive images, and now it's gone, and, we don't have it anymore. Even hip-hop, in the 80s, if you had a car, I'm Black and I'm Proud is different. Kairos One, I have a friend that literally doesn't eat pork and this and stuff because he literally learned from rappers how to be a better person. Now you got to get a Bugatti, which I've never even seen a Bugatti. Jay-Z's talking about stuff I can't even afford. Like, why would I want to listen to Jay-Z and I can't afford this stuff? He makes me depressed. I can't get none of this stuff. He has Beyonce. I don't have Beyonce. I don't have much. So, but I'm old enough. But we're old enough to use it to know that it's entertainment. But if you have a 9-year-old, 8-year-old, you were saying earlier that you have a cousin that doesn't want to go to school because his shoes aren't expensive enough. Well, that's it's entertainment for some, but if that's all they know, so be it.
Let's turn the corner right here. Nathan, I want to get to you. I'm going to come back to you, Philip. Nathan, I want to get to you because you're being 30 years old. You and Steve both are 30 years old. Has there ever been a question that you, as a young black man, wanted to ask an older black man but did not?
I don't believe so. Any question, I've been very blessed and fortunate to have had so many positive examples, in my adolescence, and I was always taught that there was really no stupid question. So I don't think that I've ever not asked a question that I felt was pertinent if there was some information that I wanted to acquire. But I feel like a lot of older black men are very frustrated with younger black men. And I think that sometimes keeps them from engaging or being overly involved because, we're all busy, we have, our obligations. But, it's important that if you care, if you know better, if you're not making an impact, if you're not doing anything about that, what is the point of that information that you have if you're not sharing it with someone else?
What's keeping our youth, so many of our youth, from getting the education that's out there that so many of us fought to get when we were that age? What keeps them from doing that?
I think it's the value system. Like, to piggyback on what Ricky was saying, I feel like hip-hop is being used as a tool of manipulation to it's suggesting if you don't have these things, then you're not and excuse my French, now the term is real nigga. I'm a real nigga. And what exactly does that mean? Why would you want to be a real nigga? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like, just the idols and the people that I looked up to, when I was younger, I feel like it's all about money. It's all about consumerism, and if you don't have financial success, then you're not a man.
You wanted to add something, Philip, a little bit ago, I remember.
Yeah, well, the hip-hop piece is a critically important part of this, but I think the marriage piece that you and Randall alluded to earlier is also critically important. When you look at the fact that most young black males are being raised by single women, the question has to be asked, who's teaching these young men how to become men? That's part of the blueprint, the blueprint. When we talk about what is our job and how we're here, but somehow we're not transferring it to the next generation, that's where I believe it becomes even more important for us to get out into the community, to get out into these families, because these young men literally aren't being taught by men what it means to be a man.
Is the family the building block of
Absolutely.
the nation,
So when you
or of
ask
the country, or of the people? The family?
Of any culture, of any society, of any civilization that's ever existed. It's always been about the family.
And if there's no black family, how can that exist? I read an interesting statistic the other day that I believe like 41 or 42% of black women have never been married. Well, of course, the percentage of black men, I mean, being married will reflect that. So I think if you don't have those examples, then, you know, then it's the female that's teaching you how to be a man.
Well, I think we got kind of screwed, kind of was coming when the grandmothers were raising the kids. When the grandmothers died, we kind of lost the village. So even if you didn't have the family structure, you still had the big mama or the Madea or this person that looked out. But when she was gone, now it's kids basically raising kids.
Yeah,
That's right.
absolutely.
Leon, are you open to a slightly older question?
Yeah,
on the same,
yeah, you-
okay.
What are
Where we going with this?
What
I
are you,
got
you're
nervous.
31?
We're just a couple years apart.
You said slightly older, you get real old, you come to me.
Leon, if I can add in
I
something.
think we're up here according to age, looks like.
If I can add in something, that's why I believe that young people should get involved in extracurricular activities. For me, I never met my dad. I didn't have a dad growing up. And to this day, I still never met my dad. But sports allowed me to have father figures. There were no black males in the classrooms as teachers. So the only time I got a chance to interact with other black men were my coaches. And I had some great ones that really were, you know, influential in my life. So, you know, I think that we have to, if not be, you know, leaders or from corporate America going into the classrooms, yes, it's very important. But what we're seeing now is we're seeing a lot of the coaches having a greater impact, and coaches have to understand that they're not just a coach. You know, these guys are fathers too. They're older, they're uncles, they're brothers, they're everything all wrapped in one. They have to take that as their approach.
Does the meet, go ahead.
No, the burning question that I have for black men is, when did we lose the ability to collaborate? When you think about all the great Greek fraternities, I'm an Alpha, but I love the Kappas, the Qs, the Sigmas. We all celebrate our founders. And there were groups of men that came together and built something that has become an institution in this country. The same is true with churches that have been built by groups. The civil rights movement is full of stories about groups, how SNCC was born and young people, you know, taking leadership roles. Today, we don't see nearly enough African-American men coming together to build something constructive or positive. Absolutely. Myself and 2 African-American males created Policy Bridge. Myself and 2 African-American males created the Red All Green Partnership. I mean, if we can come together and stop hating each other, fighting each other, you know, being jealous of each other and trying to build something, I think that gets us to the next level.
And there's one other critical aspect of this, and that's the black church. You may be a single mother, but if you are a member of a church, then you have black male role models throughout. We have young pastors like Reverend Dr. Jawanza Colvin, who's attracting younger people into the church, into the community. So the foundation of much of the progress we have made in this nation has been that black church, and we somehow have to get back to more of us, younger people, getting involved in the churches, and where there's not a black male in the home, there's a black male in the church. You're right, fraternities. I'm a member of Kappa Alpha Psi. But we have a Guide Right program that reaches out to young people. Sigma Pi Phi, reaching out to young people. If all of us put our collective efforts into reaching out, then we will go a long way towards solving this problem.
Are we fighting images that are on billboards and on television and on radio and in music, which perhaps override what should be happening in the home? And you're in the entertainment business over there, Ricky. Are we fighting those images which are so pervasive? I'm thinking about, and I don't want to answer my own question, but I'm thinking about billboards that I see in community about malt liquor and about a lot of bling.
No,
and if you drink this, you'll be so cool and all. Are we fighting these kinds of images?
No, you're 100% right. You know, before was like what we wanted to strive for, even in our music, the James Browns, I might not have it, Say It Loud, or, we strive for something bigger. And it wasn't just economical. We talked about it back there. It's like the civil rights movement. You had a doctor with the same struggle as, a mailman who had the same struggle as a guy that, might have worked at the car lot, because they had a common goal to come together and fight. And not to go backwards, what you were saying is and I don't mean to be a jerk when I say this, it sounds good. And we're up here, we took our time out to do this. It sounds good to, it's almost like we're preaching to the choir in essence. It's like, how do you get that kid to come to church? How do you get that kid? This guy had to literally quit football to do that, and even then it's combative. It's still probably questioned, but the images, it's like now, if a young, white kid, I went to university school, private school, they could watch Scarface, they could watch a movie, they know Al Pacino is Al Pacino. He's an actor, that's what he does. But somehow with us, if Rick Ross is a rapper, and he has this, and he's shooting up people, that becomes what we really want to do in the African American community, the younger kids. And it's like we can't.
So the old songs that some of us grew up on, and I'm going to do something, we're going to have audience participation in just a second, so get ready.
Karaoke.
But some of the songs that we grew up on, which helped us in the movement, are no longer there to help us in the movement. If I say it loud, mercy, mercy, mercy me, things ain't what they used to be.
I'm about to say, Marcilago? I don't know.
But you see where I'm going. And for our distinguished gentlemen here who are so much part of the civil rights movement, Louis Stokes and George Forbes and Bob Madison and Otis Moss and the others who are with us, they understood that was all part of that movement when we were kids.
It's a social responsibility. I'm a huge Jay-Z fan. Went to a concert last night in New York, but he doesn't have to do it. But, what if he just put a little message? Maybe, I don't want to sound corny, instead of 12 songs, maybe the 13th song is, uplifting or something that he's saying, give back. It doesn't take much. Steve, I'm not going to put you in blast, say this joking, you're not a Jay-Z, you don't have millions and millions of dollars, but for what you've done, if you take somebody like a Beyonce or Jay-Z or somebody, or Kanye, instead of wearing a kilt, what if he said, how about we all go out and we all, let's all take one kid and read a book to him. It's minor, but it's so much that could be done in such a minor way that's not being done.
And to that point, I wanted to say, Julian just reminded me that Policy Bridge did a research report titled The Rap on Culture, where we talked about anti-education messages that kids get from the street, at home, from peers, et cetera. We released this report, and people started telling us, you all should launch a positive campaign to get kids to counter the negative messages. So I was contacted and told, I could get you LeBron James, I could get you Jay-Z. And I thought, wow, if I can get those two to say anything positive, I have half of urban America. But the marketing professional said, no, that's your opinion. You need to hear what kids have to say about that. So we put together a group of about 15 boys between 10 and 14. We showed them a bunch of images. We started out showing all the rappers and the athletes. And then we showed them images of a man in a hard hat, a woman with a cap and gown, a man in a police uniform, someone in a business suit. So we asked two simple questions. The first question was, who do you admire? So all the hands flew up, Jay-Z, Lil Wayne, LeBron James, et cetera. Then we asked the second question, who do you think is successful? And one by one, the kids started telling stories. Well, the girl in the cap and gown, because I live in Glenville, and I have a cousin who's in her second year at Yale, so all my family says she's going to be successful. Or someone else said, the guy in the business suit, because my next door neighbor works at a bank and he wears a suit and he takes good care of his family. So we started to realize that it wasn't the celebrity that we should be marketing in the first place. It was kids could better understand and relate to everyday people that they see, like the men on this panel, to start to understand what it really takes to be successful. Because, what they see on TV is great, but they still have to walk through their neighborhoods and live everyday lives like everyone else.
Steve, is that what you deal with your group, your mentoring group?
Yeah, and we try to allow the kids to have a great voice in what we do, because you can talk at the kids, but if you're not listening to what they have to say, then you're not coming from their level. So that's the major thing, and I think that things that they're seeing on a daily basis that we kind of just drive by, and they're things that we pass by every day, but go to a black community, what do you see? Check cashing places. You see fast foods. Go to a white community, you don't see a check cashing place. You don't see those things, those images that are just reflected at you over and over again. And then you start to wonder why the kids are almost at a point to where they want to be like a Jay-Z because they want to get out of the environments that they're in, and they see that as the only opportunity of hope. Now, we know that that's not true, but that's what they see.
Julian, I want you to give a thumbnail sketch of, I asked you how you became a physicist. This man was the director of NASA Glenn for several years, worked for 40 years as a physicist within the NASA organization, or close to 40 years. How did you become a physicist? You could have fallen through the cracks easily growing up in Virginia. What happened?
Well, my parents were not formally educated. My mother only went through the 8th grade, my dad to the 4th. But I tell people they were not uneducated, they were self-educated. But Reverend Dr. Moss and I were talking about the importance of assembly programs. So we were talking about Kenneth Clement School and getting the kids in the assembly program. I was sitting in an assembly program as a junior in high school before most of these people were born. And a man stood up on the stage and he was dressed to the nines. I asked how much money he made. He said $300 a week. I said, what do you do? He said, I'm an electrical engineer. I said, that's what I want to be. But to continue the story, I couldn't afford to go to a college that had a program in electrical engineering. So when I went to Norfolk State, someone who became my mentor, my second father, Dr. Woods, said, what do you want to do? I said, electrical engineering. He said, well, son, if you major in physics, physicists work as engineers sometimes. Engineers never work as physicists. And I said, yes, sir. And that's how I got, and he stayed as my mentor and a second father my entire life. And the culmination of the story is my first job at NASA, my title was not physicist, but nuclear engineer. Okay.
Right, and that's something. I'm coming to you in just a second, Philip Morris, because I want you to explain what we can do with this story and the story that I'm going to tell. In the 6th grade at Miles Standish Elementary School in Cleveland District, when I graduated the 6th grade, I wrote the 6th grade graduation play. We put the play on, everything went well. My 6th grade teacher was a man by the name of Robert Taylor, and Mr. Taylor put his hands on my 11-year-old shoulders, and he said, son, you're a writer. You have a gift for words. It is a God-given gift. And if I were you, I would think about a career as a playwright or a journalist. That moment was the moment that changed my life. It was a 10-second conversation from a 25-year-old black man who said, you're a journalist, son. That's what you ought to be. What do we draw from these two stories, Philip?
Well, where we start is we learn to prioritize and start to push our own message. This week, America is fixated with a 24-year-old defensive back from Seattle named Richard Sherman, who may or may not be the best corner in the game. Bottom line is, he has promoted himself to the top of the Super Bowl agenda by virtue of his attitude, his braggadocio, real urban attitude, which television has picked up on. Bottom line is, folks don't understand that there's another flip side to this man. He's working on an MBA at Stanford, a highly intelligent young brother, but the media has picked up on this image and tried to promote him as this guy as the face of the urban male. Dr. Earls here, Randy, the rest of the people up here, these are the type of images that we need to start promoting. When we talk about the blueprint, the plan, we have to do a better job of getting ourselves out into the community. Again, I understand, Dr. Earl, I keep coming back to this, how you are offended by the shoulders of giants that the current generation is standing on, and they don't tend to appreciate or try to emulate, what's been given to us as a birthright. And of course it's true, you can lead a horse to water and not make him drink. But when you see the whole Tower of Babel starting to collapse around you because people aren't speaking the same language, and when we're standing here with the blueprint in our hand, and we're not force-feeding it to them, saying, look, people, here's what we came from, here's what we represent, here's what we must do. We've made it easy for you. It's never been easier for you to be a successful African-American in the history of this country. I mean, we have a black president, for Christ's sake. So bottom line is, it falls to us, people like you and I, especially Leon, to continue to put out images like this, to share stories like this, because that's the blueprint right there.
You're nodding in agreement over there, Nathan. I'm seeing an amen from the amen corner, Nathan.
Amen corner.
Yeah.
All day.
I was joking backstage, and my real age, whatever. But 2 years ago, I didn't even know TV writing existed. To your point of whatever, I went to a school in Dallas like 5 days ago, and I was talking to a bunch of kids, young black kids, and they, I've never, I don't know how to write, I go, have you heard of Kevin Hart? I go, oh yeah. I go, I helped write on Real Housewives in a show he did. So even to put that seed, I go, well, they actually had all the class clowns come in the classroom. I go, well, I used to be a class clown, and you can make a lot of decent money being a class clown if you know how to, mold it, learn how to write and things of that sort. But it does take somebody going, you can be the class clown, but you can still take that and do X, Y, Z, and not, you're the bad person, you're the bad person, you're the bad person, but just finding out people's niches and kind of going with it. But I think we're so quick to label these kids nowadays, and you're writing off a kid at 8 years old, 5 years old. He has this, this disease. He needs, this medication, this and that, instead of just nurturing it and just trying to figure out what it is.
We're getting down to our final 5 minutes or thereabouts, and I'm not certain whether we're taking questions from the audience or not. Somebody will let me know. But we want to start turning third base and heading home with this now. What should we be doing, Nathan? From your vantage point, you're 30 years old, and what should we be doing?
Collectively, what should we be doing? Taking ownership, I believe, is really important. Like you were talking about earlier about Jay-Z. I'm a huge Jay-Z fan, but what he does with his celebrity is he sells luxury goods. Just think if it was, more visual in terms of, upliftment and, community service, activism, this political agenda. Those are things that I feel like I know that he does and other rappers do, but it's the cognac that gets promoted. It's the vodka, and I'm not, knocking anyone's, hustle, but I feel like it's very disproportionate. The messages that we see every day it's all materialism. And I think that if, like we were talking about earlier, it just comes back down to values.
Ebony Magazine had an article entitled 7 Things That Hold Us Back. I'm not going to go through all 7, but one of them is living larger than life. That holds us back. We have the latest bags, the latest shoes, enough bling to make Diddy do a double take. But what's in your savings account is the question. That's what
We contribute.
Ricky, give me 30 seconds. We're down to our final couple of minutes, 3 minutes or so.
I agree with that. I think I'm from a new age. I think if it is the rappers in your face, I think we need to go in your face. I think we need to promote ourselves more. We need to tell these kids, you don't have to be a rapper. You don't have to have negative images. I think, I do this thing real quick, Rain Acts of Kindness, and, first I started doing anonymous, but it's okay with going and saying, hey, I know this guy Steve, he does this, this, and that. Hey, I know, a physicist does this and that. And just go in these people's faces. We got to literally figure out what's the disconnect. These kids aren't listening, so we got to yell louder.
We got to get into the faces of the kids.
Yeah.
We have to get in the faces of the parents, too, sometimes, right? What do you think, Steve?
Yeah, I think that there needs to be more conversations like we're having. I think more events, not just Black History Month, but these things need to happen, on a weekly basis. But I also think that we can use social media in a different way. All of the kids, the people that we're talking about, this room, we all think the same way more than likely. We took our time out to come here. But the people that we're trying to reach, they're all on social media. So why not use your social media pages, not for the latest joke or the latest funny video, but for a positive message, for something that's going on good in our communities. And that's how I use it. So a lot of people, I'm sure we got here, possibly by social media. So let's continue to use it for what it is, and that's for a positive opportunity to promote positivity.
Philip Morris.
Yeah, I echo everything that's just been said. I think, though, that it falls to each of us to realize that we are the blueprint and that it's incumbent upon us to walk out of the doors of this auditorium today and make sure that we share the blueprint with one other person who needs to see the blueprint and to be consistent and to sustain that contact. We have to always remember as well that Rosa Parks helped launch the civil rights movement with a simple act of defiance. We can never forget how easy it is to start a revolution, even under young people, emerging generations who don't understand where they are at this point in the continuum. So I think at this point it falls again to us to understand that we are the blueprint and we have to pass it on.
Randall McShepard.
Very simply, do something. Stop talking about what's wrong, what's needed, what's necessary, what you could do different, roll up your sleeves and do something. I'll just close by a story that I heard from first African-American governor in the U.S., Wilder from Virginia. And he said to me once that at the end of the day, we should all ask ourselves, when our grandkids sit on our lap and look back at the issues of our day and turn to you and say, Grandma or Granddad, where were you when this was going on? You better be prepared to answer the question. Thank you.
Julian.
I think that we really have to put efforts into education. We have to make sure we make our presence felt. When we talk about education and the private schools and charter schools, et cetera, public schools are going to be the answer, and we've got to make sure that we fight and support for that. And finally, as we get education ourselves, my folks used to say that education without common sense is like a load of books on the back of a jackass. Okay? So what we've got to do is to take our education, combine it with some common sense, roll up our sleeves, and get things done.
Some of my teachers were white, and I learned from them. I had no role models, generally speaking, blacks, doing what I do for a living when I went into this business. I have been in journalism since I was 17 years of age. Since I was 17, working for the school newspaper, the college newspaper, the radio stations, television stations, and there were not a lot of black folks. So I took Walter Cronkite and made him my mentor. He didn't know me. He didn't know he was my mentor. But I said, I want to do it like Walter Cronkite and Chet Huntley and David Brinkley and the people of that generation.
I'll just simply say, remember first and foremost, not all white folks are your enemies and not all black folks are your friends.
That's right.
Which is where I was going. I think they told me we can take a couple of questions. I've got microphones down here. I got a microphone down here. And if you've got a question, please, and I've got one over here. And because of time, I'm going to ask you to ask a question and to please not make a speech.
He must have saw me coming.
I saw you first.
First, though, I did want to say thank you to the distinguished gentlemen, the fellows. Listen, the fellows first, then the distinguished gentlemen of UMADOP, and then now you, the distinguished gentlemen. The celebration and appreciation for this type of assembly and us making history. As a playwright, Mr. Bibbs, I would not get away from an opportunity to say that this has made history, and we hope that it would inspire this community to go to the theaters as well as the visual arts celebration, because Cleveland is rich in these institutions. I asked the panel or a response to the concern as the two words that I don't have to get out of my house, the B word and the N word, because they were not introduced into my home. I do need to work on getting out of my house the word that my mother did not allow in our house, and that is the can't word. Can you please respond to that, as I have not to make it to the Super Bowl, but I need to make it to a basketball game that's very important for somebody in this audience.
Somebody want to respond to that on the panel? The can't word.
If I come from it from my perspective, you know, I grew up in playing sports all my life, so that word didn't exist. So for me, anybody that uses the word can't, they are, you know, putting themselves already in a negative mindset. So you have to approach everything that you do, whether it's sports or anything else, you always have to approach it and, you know, state things in a positive mindset. So, you know, I think that you have to remove that word completely from your vocabulary.
Got a question over here.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name is Trell Taylor. I represent the BREP program. I'm a senior at Martin Luther King Junior High School. My question is, what do you believe holds African Americans back the most collectively?
I'll take a stab at that. I think it kind of goes back to the last question that the man asked about how do I get the can't word out of my house. The BRIC program is an outstanding program. I've met a number of the young men who've come through there through the years. Bashir Jones, outstanding BRIC alumnus, as you probably well know. I think the mindset of that I can achieve, I can do it, and I will do it is what will make it happen for you. So I think it's that positive mindset, that positive imagery that you teach or that you learn at BRIC. Brothers respecting, intelligence, what's the rest of it?
Conduct and knowledge.
Conduct and knowledge. That's the answer. I mean, that's the answer to your own question.
It's right in your name, in the name Brick. Over here, we got a question over here.
I see a lot of my mentors on the panel already, and I know for myself, originally, a mentor inspired me to become a physician, and 4 degrees later, at Case Western, I'm closer to that now. But I like to say that connection came through my mother. So how do we hold parents more accountable? Because I feel like that's where the real issue lies.
Anybody want to? Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was going to say, we at Policy Bridge, we're actually working on a research report right now focused on parental engagement and parental involvement, and we've had many focus groups, so we're getting a lot of really interesting perspectives. I think we have to really continue to illuminate the fact that parents have a significant role in raising their kids, and they're the first teachers that kids have. They're the ones that help kids understand to shy away from words like can't. And if we don't do that, we have a generation running amok. So I just think we have to continue to remind parents what they already know, that it's up to us as the first teachers to put our kids on the right path.
And there's common links. We all inhabit this planet, we all breathe the same air, and we all want success for our children. Absolutely. So the way to get to parents is to tap into their role in helping their children succeed, because we all love our children and want to see them. So let's tap that as a hot button.
We're going to squeeze in a couple of questions here because they're kind of here, so we're going to be quick.
Okay, my name is Timothy Roberts Jr. I attend John Hay High School as a 10th grader, and I just like to say that this kid right here is, I'm his blueprint. My question is, as a youth especially, like, why aren't we exposed to the great African Americans there are? Like, we barely know about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Why don't we get to know more about these great people that we have today?
Do they study? How old are you?
I'm 16.
Do they speak of what school? You go to Cleveland schools?
Yes, John Hay High School.
Do they talk about Dr. King in school?
I mean, it's sad to say, but not until February rolls around.
Right.
This great American hero.
Yes.
And you want to know more about Dr. King?
I mean, I know enough about him, but it's just the fact that we barely get to know about our history as African Americans in general.
And this is your, who is this with you?
He's a student at my dad's school.
How old are you, young fella? 6. Come on up. Come on up. Both of you, come on up. Come on up. And he's a student at your school? At your father's school? Come on up. You're 16. And you're 6? What's your name? Can you hear me? You speak right into my microphone there. Do you know about Dr. King, Martin Luther King? A little bit? Well, we're going to tell you a lot more. Ladies and gentlemen, this is what it's about. This is what we're talking about. Right here. All of us in this room have been this age, 16, and we've certainly been 6 years of age. This is what it's about. And you want to know more about history of great Americans like Martin Luther King. Not just a black hero, an American hero, Nobel Peace Prize winner. You want to know more about that.
Yes, sir.
So you want the schools to talk more about it throughout the year?
Yes.
Not just February on Black History Month?
Yes.
We need to do programs like this year round?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen.
Hey, Leon.
Hold on.
Yeah, if I could respond briefly to young Mr. Roberts there. I challenge you to become an ambassador for what you said you want. I know you're sincere, and there's a need, and I think you pointed out an enormous gap in the education, not just of black Americans, but Americans in general. So part of meeting that challenge, start taking people to the library. I mean, there are records of all the people that you want to know more about. I mean, you'll be amazed of the giants in history that you'll find just through a simple trip to the library. So I challenge you.
I would even say internet.
Or use the internet. Yeah, I'm dating myself here.
Yeah, I'm about to say,
But I challenge you to become the solution to a very serious problem that you've identified.
I'll tell you something else. We got 2 minutes, and I got to wrap it up because they're really squeezing me here. On television, they say there's not a lot on television. Depends on what channel you're on. I'm on the Smithsonian Channel. I'm on the Discovery Channel. I'm on channels like that. That's where you will find me and my attention. That's where I am. So I think if you just be very selective. There's a lot of stuff out there on TV, but there's also some great things on TV as well. I've got a minute and a half remaining over here.
All right, my philosophy is this, that we all are thinking, feeling, willing human beings. And we, as human people, are still pioneering. This country was only invented 250 years. I'm 25 years from the Declaration of Independence. But we all been fermenting from yesterday, and we got to take the best of yesterday, psych up down, and bless the young to be strong, because by telling them that they can, regardless of where they came from, they are growing mentally and physical, and we got to keep hope alive by accentuating the positive, like you educated folks up there is leading by example. And we can't lose if we know how to choose, because good and bad is always in play every day.
Isn't that the truth? Thank you so much for your comment. We're going to take one more. I got one more over here. I got one more. And you'll be quick with your question. We'll be quick with the response.
My name is Jossie Lanier, and I'm a senior at the illustrious Glenville High School. And
I like that.
my question for the panel is, what can we do as a whole to help mentally uplift so many African-American teens who are fatherless?
I think that, to Randy, what you were saying earlier, it's get up and do something. There are so many enrichment programs in the city. We have to start taking responsibility for telling our own stories. There's so many organizations that you can volunteer, that you can become a part of, and I just feel like that's where it really begins, and that's where you can make the largest impact. With volunteerism.
I also think that when you raise your kids, if you're talking about raising children, it's the most important job I've ever had, is helping my wife raise 2 children. We're married. Raise 2 children. Raise 2 children. And I've lived long enough. I have both daughters who are grown. I'm a grandfather now with 4 grandkids. I've lived long enough to have both daughters come in and say, thank you for being strict and for loving and being there. And being there for me. That's the biggest reward in the world, so that's important. Second story is, when I would leave the house when I was 12, 13, 14, 15 years old, my father would always see me at the door, and he would always say, remember who you are. Remember your last name is Bibb, and whatever you do reflects on all of us back here at the house. So go out and have fun, but do the right thing. Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for allowing us to give our opinions. We're going to bring in the Reverend Jawanza Colvin, who's going to give us some final thoughts.
Let's give our panelists a round of applause. This has been a wonderful event.
Well done.
I'm going to ask if you would remain in your seats just for one moment as we have our closing remarks and our benediction on behalf of the Cleveland Museum of Art and members of the African American Advisory Committee. I'm going to ask the members of the African American Advisory Committee, if they were here, if they would please stand. Members of the African American Advisory Committee. Thank you. We'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining us today. I invite you all, if you have not already done so, to visit the Hank Willis Thomas exhibition here at the museum through March the 9th and at the Transformer Station on the Near West Side through March the 8th. If you've enjoyed today's discussion and know someone who might enjoy hearing this message, there will be 2 other Blueprint Roundtable discussions held here in our community. One on Wednesday, February the 26th at 11:30 a.m. at the Cleveland Clinic main campus, and the other on Thursday, March the 6th at 6 p.m. at the Friendly Inn Settlement House. Additional information can be found on the website, and flyers are available for pickup on your way out at the information desk. We also provided reflection boards in the atrium next to the Truth booth if you would like to leave a comment or contemplation on what you have heard at today's roundtable. Please join us in the museum atrium for light refreshments. But before that, I would like the Reverend Dr. Zachary Williams, Professor of History at Akron University to come and offer us a word of benediction. Thank you for participating with us today.
Let us pray and be dismissed. We thank you for what we have seen, for what we have heard, and for what our hearts have experienced. We thank you for the trailblazers on whose shoulders we stand. We thank you for the giant artistry of Hank Willis Thomas, his family, this extraordinary panel, and this museum. And we thank you for those who have assembled here today, and we ask your guidance upon them. We recognize that this is not an end, but a beginning. For today, we grapple with many questions in our world, but questions we know for which you have the answer. We pray for the next generation of congressional leaders and pastors and theologians and educators and political strategists and physicists and sociologists and social justice advocates, architects and health professionals. And we ask that your guiding power and presence be with us now and forevermore. We pray for the nourishment that has been prepared for the workers whose hands help to prepare it. And we pray for safe travels and your mercy upon us as we go back to our destinations. It is in your name that we, your humble servants, say amen.
Amen. All right, brother,